Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bedroom Brainiacs. We're here to get naughty and nerdy. My name is Catherine Dukes, and I am the owner of the Center for Connection and Desire, a group practice where we do sex therapy, couples therapy, and adult sex education. And Bedroom Brainiacs is our adult sex education service for our group practice. We're here today to do our video celebrating International Masturbation Month. And I am here with Kate and Julie, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So I'm going to toss it over to Kate.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Kate Randall. I am an adult educator with expertise in sexuality and sexual health.
Hi, I'm Julie Sletting. I am a sex therapist and a sex educator with a focus on neurodivergence and gender.
And so, Julie, could you kick us off with telling us a little bit about language around masturbation? And you had such great ideas around also maybe expanding and shifting our language.
Absolutely. So for me, one of the things that I think is such a cool um, way to reconfigure our thoughts around masturbation is that there are so many stories that we get told about masturbation throughout our lives that it is this other thing. It is separate from our sexuality. It is talked about differently. When really, in reality, it's simply solo sex. It's just sex with yourself rather than with a partner. And I think that there is a lot of power in beginning to reincorporate the idea of solo sex as a really valuable and wonderful part of your sexuality rather than by labeling it as masturbation, othering it. And so you have your sex and then you have masturbation. But if we translate that over and start calling it solo sex, then we just have sex, whether it's with yourself or someone else or a bunch of other people. It's all sex.
When you and I were talking about this yesterday, that really reflected how I talk with my clients about sex and how I work with my clients on expanding the definition of sex when we talk about the definition of sex in sex therapy. Because often when we work with clients on, hey, what is your definition of sex when we're talking about having sex? Our client's definition of what is sex is different than the sex therapist or sex educator definition of sex. And our clients typically mean a penis in a body part, typically a penis in a vagina if it's a heterosexual coupling. And so, what I try to work with my clients on is I tell them my definition of sex, which is any erotic, sexy time activity by yourself or with other people that is wanted and pleasurable.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really it. And so that
Yeah.
includes solo sex.
Well, one of the things that I think is wonderful about the idea of solo sex is that it challenges the story, the narrative that we have that masturbation is less than sex. It's not as good because the goal is a partner. And some people don't want a partner. And that's a perfectly reasonable way to have a sexuality. It doesn't negate your sexuality to pursue and enjoy solo sex. It's just a different type of sex than partnered sex.
Exactly. Another thing I want to add, I want to jump on this about masturbation or solo sex across the lifespan is another piece of expanding that is when I would do parent workshops, there was this idea that solo sex or masturbation like starts at this certain age. It starts in the teenage years, right? And then it lasts till I don't know, like 45. And then it's like this is done. Or sexuality starts at like the teenage years and it ends at this other Hollywood determined year. And so when I would do lifespan education, parents are always very surprised to learn that touching one's genitals for pleasure is likely to begin in toddlerhood and you know, end at the end of life. And that is completely and utterly normal. And so, and we can call that solo sex or we can call that masturbation, but there's not this like one period in time. There's not this one day at a time where that just goes from being non-sexual to sexual. There's not this one day when you're 14 or 15 or 17, when that magically goes from non-sexual to sexual, that we can acknowledge that we are sexual beings, for our lifespan. So,
Absolutely.
mhm.
So in terms of the benefits of solo sex, there's a lot of benefits when it comes to the relationship you have with yourself. It can be very affirming to know that your body is capable of pleasure and to know that you are capable of giving yourself pleasure. That knowledge around your body and what you find pleasurable can enhance, as I said, your relationship with yourself, the solo sex that you have, and it also can enhance any sex you have with partners. When it comes to physical benefits of masturbation and of pleasure and of orgasms, it can relieve tension. It can help with like minor aches and pains. It can help improve your sleep. It can increase your focus and your mood. It can help with your mental health, preventing anxiety and depression. And so there's a lot of like, physical and mental health benefits that come from solo sex in addition to the relationship that you have with yourself.
Yes, if your body is a body that menstruates, masturbation can help with cramps. If
Yeah.
your body is a body that might get prostate cancer, lots of orgasms can maybe reduce the risk of prostate cancer. Like solo sex and orgasms they have such great health benefits. They help with
Yeah.
yeah, they
And
help
we
with
have a
headache.
separate video about the health benefits of orgasms, and all that information in that video applies to the benefits of solo sex as well.
That's fantastic. All right, so how can people, and so I don't know who wants to actually like lead us off on this one. How do people learn more about solo sex? Because the three of us and more are sex educators because we are passionate about teaching people about sexuality, and probably because we all came from a place of noticing that there was a complete lack of sex education in our culture. So how do people learn about solo sex?
I think the first way people learn is just when you're a really little, a small kid and you're first kind of discovering that you have a physical form and a body and you're touching your physical form and you're touching your
Mhm.
body. Like if you spend enough time around small kids, you'll see that they touch their vulvas and they touch their penises and they touch their butts. So like
Mhm.
for a lot of us, the learning about solo sex just happens naturally as we start sort of touching our own bodies and figuring out, what it feels like, what feels good. So I think initially, before we get all the societal messages about solo sex and all of the shame, but initially it's just an exploration of our own body and learning of our own body as, as a natural part of growing up.
Yes,
Tony,
and a side note, by the way, quick side note to parents, when you notice your kids doing that, you don't have to stop them in any way. I'm a big proponent that you can teach privacy without teaching shame. So what you can do when that happens is you can say like, yes, like, oh, I see that you've discovered that. Yes, that I could tell that that feels really good. Like that is an awesome private activity. So if you want to continue that, go ahead and continue that in your room, but like not on the couch next to grandma. Julie?
Yeah, well, I think what both of you are talking about is sort of the same exact way to go about it as an adult. That idea of just like exploring your body. What does feel good? Do I know what feels good? Can I be curious about what feels good? Have I ever touched my butt like that before? Let's find out. And rather than coming at it with like, what I need is a step-by-step instructional manual to figure out how to do this thing, and let me say, as a person who is neurodivergent and works with neurodivergent clients all day long, we love an instruction manual. But there is that reality of just like, your body is unique to you. The person who's going to write that instruction manual is you. And so that idea of, let me just take my time, see what feels good, not be thinking that it's supposed to feel a certain way, or an interlude by my cat. It's not supposed to feel a certain way, and it's not supposed to have a certain result. That the goal of this is to be curious about pleasure, really opens doors as kind of the largest pathway to learning about solo sex and masturbation.
Yeah, and I think that's a good transition when we want to think about bringing mindfulness into masturbation. Like Julie, what you were talking about was kind of the mindset that sometimes people think of masturbation as like a task, like I'm doing this to have an orgasm, and when I have an orgasm, then it's over. And if I don't achieve an orgasm, then it's a waste of time and I've failed. So a lot of times bringing mindfulness into masturbation includes that sort of curiosity and focusing on exploring your body, exploring what feels good, but then also just kind of taking the goal of orgasm out of it. Like what happens if you touch your body without having a goal in mind? Like what kind of experience will that be for you? So I think like mindset is really important. Little kids aren't really cognizant of their mindset when they're touching their body, but as an adult you can be more cognizant and be more intentional with your mindset when it comes to how you approach solo sex.
Definitely. Especially when we think about mindset, I think a lot of people, I have heard from a lot of people that like getting to curiosity isn't necessarily the number one obstacle. For a lot of people, the obstacle is like, cool, I'm here. I don't know if I'm going to have an orgasm. When do I stop?
Mm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
like a really common feedback that I hear about that idea of like, I want to do this self exploration, but like I start to get in my head about like, well, I use an orgasm as a key that like I've accomplished it, it's done, ta-da, on to the next thing.
Yep.
And so one of the challenges, like interestingly, this idea of like talking about kids and their curiosity is so helpful because one of the things I think about is like when a toddler decides they want to color, they just go, I want to color, and they start coloring. And when they decide coloring's over, they're just done coloring. It's not complicated. They
Uh,
just are like, coloring was fun until it wasn't anymore, and now I'm done with coloring. And I think there is a piece of giving ourselves that permission to be able to go like, I'm going to do this while it's fun, and if it stops being fun, then that can be when I'm done with it.
yeah, I think
It's
that's a great metaphor.
it's a really challenging place for people to get, I think, for many, because we have this idea that like we need a way to show the box has been checked.
Hmm.
But masturbation, but solo sex isn't about checking a box. It's just about pleasure.
And I love this coloring metaphor, so I'm going to jump on it. Something else that kids do really well is also they color outside the lines, right? And so I recently had there was a Facebook memory where I was praising myself because my son was making a rainbow and he went and grabbed black to make a black stripe on the rainbow, and I was really successful because I shut the hell up. And I was like, that's beautiful, black stripe on that rainbow. And so, because when kids color outside the lines or do things against the rules, like that, there's a lot of success in that. And so we can actually translate that beautifully to masturbation and exploration. And so masturbation doesn't actually have to involve penetration if you have a body that you have previously enjoyed penetration. Masturbation maybe doesn't even have to involve your genitals. Masturbation doesn't have to involve your hands. Maybe you can try toys for the first time. You can experiment with lubricants. You can experiment with oils. You can experiment with all sorts of things. But here's the thing about experimentation of your body and masturbation. Experiment with fantasy, experiment with media, experiment with pictures, media, maybe some audio. When we experiment and we try new things, don't expect it to just work perfectly the first time. When we experiment and we try new things, they can also be awkward. They can also not work quite well the first time. Maybe you're forming new neural pathways, maybe you're trying new things. And so give things like a few times to kind of develop skills or develop new tastes. I think about the way our bodies work as having there's like a pleasure map. Your whole body has a pleasure map, but give yourself the opportunity to have your pleasure map change over time and have that mindset as well. So, we have just a couple minutes left. What else do either of you want to touch on before we end our video?
Well, I think in that idea of like give yourself a couple of times to try something. If you're going to be curious and explore, be curious and explore without assuming that something has failed. in that, the other side of that coin is like, set yourself up for success. Like, treat your body well. This is meant to be fun. This is meant to be pleasurable. Treat it that way. Think about your body. Like, lubricants are such an essential part of pleasure for all types of genitals. And when we treat our body well, part of doing that is like reducing the expectation that your body respond a certain way. So being able to go, my body feel like, for a vulvas benefit from lubrication. And you can rely on the lubrication that is produced internally, but that takes time and requires, everybody is different. And so not everybody's going to produce the same amount or at the same speed or whatever the case may be. Store-bought's great. Store-bought is fine. My vision isn't great, so I bought glasses. Store-bought's great. And what we can do is provide our body with a comfortable place to be open to pleasure. So something like lubricant. Also things like, cleaning your hands. If you're going to use your hands, wash them. Take care of your fingernails. If you're going to use objects, make sure that they are clean and make sure that they are safe to use. Flared bases are very important if we're planning on putting our objects into any parts of our body. And make sure that we're not combining silicone lubricant with silicone objects. Silicone and silicone do not go together. They need to be used separately.
Yes.
So there's so many opportunities to set yourself up for an enjoyable experience. And, think about it like packing your lunch for a work day. You don't want to go to work and then be hungry. Like, pack yourself a good lunch. Pack all the things that you want for this experience.
Create like a whole date for yourself. Kate, any final words?
No final words. I love that you both have sort of touched on the concept of intention, because that's what I was thinking, that like you can approach solo sex through intention, thinking about, what's going to make me comfortable, what's going to put me in the mindset to explore and be curious. But both of you have touched on that already, and I've just really enjoyed this conversation and learning from both of you.
Thank you. Thank you both. And happy International Masturbation Month to all of you.
Happy solo sex.
Happy solo sex. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please stay in touch with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on social media, and absolutely please comment below and let us know if you have any suggestions for future topics. We would love to hear from you.